In late 2025, an oil tanker called the Bella 1 sailed into the Atlantic, heading straight for Venezuela, despite a strict U.S.-imposed quarantine. A U.S. Coast Guard vessel moved in to intercept, but instead of complying with orders to stop, the tanker ran. On December 17th, the ship's crew abruptly killed their transponder. They dropped off global tracking systems entirely and vanished into the open ocean. The Coast Guard and Navy kept searching, and 2 weeks later they found the ship in the North Atlantic. The crew had hastily painted a new name on the hull, the Marinera. It was actually a Russian tanker. That single capture exposed the edge of a much larger problem. It revealed a shadowy network of ships actively subverting international trade laws to move illicit cargo. This network is known as the Ghost Fleet. It consists of anywhere from 400 to over 1,000 aging oil tankers, secretly navigating the globe. This shadow fleet pulls in roughly $87 to $100 billion for Russia, directly funding their war machine. Add in another $50 to $56 billion generated for Iran's security apparatus. By bypassing Western sanctions, these ships act as an economic lifeline, keeping heavily sanctioned regimes financially afloat. Before the invasion of Ukraine, Russia had no reason to hide its maritime traffic. It sold its oil openly on the legal global market. Once international sanctions and oil price caps were enforced, Moscow had to find a way to maintain its revenue without getting caught. To survive the economic blockade, they targeted a massive loophole in the maritime industry. The entire system relies on ships honestly reporting their own locations. Curious. Hiding a vessel the size of a skyscraper from global enforcers requires careful execution. Tanker crews rely on 3 specific methods to disappear. The first method is going dark. Crews manually disable their automatic identification system, or AIS, simply killing the power to their tracking transponder. The second is identity washing. To confuse local port enforcers, a crew will physically repaint the ship's name or swap its registry flag mid-journey. The third is GPS spoofing. Instead of turning off trackers, these vessels broadcast deliberately falsified location data to satellites. A digital signature might show it idling off Africa, while the actual vessel is miles away, loading illicit cargo inside a sanctioned port. By overlapping these tactics, autocratic regimes operated these massive fleets with almost total freedom for years. The U.S. quarantine around Venezuela forced a closer look at this traffic. When those overlapping networks were exposed, it proved these ships could be caught, pushing allied nations to launch their own crackdowns. We are now seeing an active international response. French authorities recently intercepted a shadow vessel known as the Grinch, coordinating with international partners to stop its route. Now, enforcers are looking at the Baltic Sea. The maritime routes leading out of ports near St. Petersburg are a primary battleground, serving as the starting point for a vast amount of Russian oil. Physically policing these narrow geographic choke points is the most effective way to intercept these ships before they scatter into the open ocean. But blocking the Baltic Straits carries severe legal risks. Restricting passage could be viewed as a direct violation of the UN Law of the Sea Treaty. Beyond the legal hurdles, there is a very real fear that forcefully boarding Russian vessels in European waters could escalate into a direct military confrontation. Yet this highlights a deep irony in Vladimir Putin's strategy. He has repeatedly stated his goal is to intentionally dismantle the rules-based international order. If that system degrades, the very rules protecting Russian shadow fleets disappear. An absence of international law permits Western nations to use much more aggressive, hybrid retaliation tactics to stop these ships. To genuinely sever this lifeline, Congress and international allies have to hit the broader supply chain. That means directly sanctioning the international refineries that purchase this oil and the physical ports that allow these ships to dock. Catching individual tankers is a start, but if global sanctions are going to work, enforcers must dismantle the entire network and drag this multi-billion-dollar trade back into the sunlight.